get started. So recording is in progress for educational purposes and promotional purposes. So welcome everyone to our Empathy Circle Facilitator Training. This is a 5-week training, and so glad that you're all here. And I'm Edwin Rutsch. I've been talking with most of you online, I'm sort of been organizing and putting all this together. So I have the producer role, and producer is the person that kind of does all the background organization and sort of keeps all the sort of wheels rolling. And I'd like to just introduce to you our training team. So first is Bill, and Bill is one of the developers of the training. He's has been doing this for quite a long time. He was the original developer of the training, designer. And then we have Graham is also one of the trainers, and Rasha and Celine. So yeah, and then we have we also have a support group of Kathy and Francesca and Ralph someplace. Ralph, are you there? I'm not seeing Ralph drop off or. Okay. So what we want to do next is we're going to go around and introduce ourselves. Everybody get a chance to introduce ourselves. So I am going to turn it over to Graham. Take it away, Graham. And you're muted.
So thank you, Edwin. I'm going to call on each of you to sort of check in, and the idea is to say your name, where you come from, and what brought you to the Empathy Circle. And if you could spend maximum 30 seconds on that, that would be really appreciated. And so I'm going to call on you all from the top of my screen down to the bottom, because the bottom of the screen tends to be off at this stage. And so if you like, starting with me, my name's Graham. I come from a little town called Windsor, opposite Detroit in Ontario, Canada. I'm not a Canadian though, as you can probably hear. And I am very interested in the empathy circles because of the power it gives me in connecting with people, or rather it teaches me how to connect with people. And that's why I'm here. And I'd like to pass that on to Celine, followed by Kathy.
Hello, my name is Celine. I live in the west coast of the United States in Oregon, where we have a lot of smoke. And I think what I love most about empathy circles is that it's a practice of listening, even when we don't agree with what's being said. I think it's a great skill, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. So Kathy, followed by Rasha.
Yes, hi everybody, I'm Kathy. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I love these circles because it gives me a chance to talk and be heard, and gives me a chance to deeply listen to others.
Thank you, Kathy. So Rasha, followed by Edwin.
Hello, everyone. So grateful to be here and to see all of you. I run an organization called the Empathy University. So empathy is what I do. And so that's why I'm here. I love the empathy circles. I feel it's a great way to connect and to feel heard. It's a therapeutic space, in fact. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasha. Edwin, followed by Francesca.
Yeah, well, I find that the empathy circle is just the most effective gateway practice for empathy building. And I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And yeah, I just want to train everyone in the world. I just feel if we can get everyone in the world trained to be able to take part in empathy circle, it would just create much greater well-being for the whole world. So I'm really driven to do that.
Thank you, Edwin. Francesca now, followed by Bill.
Hi, my name's Francesca and I'm from Toronto, Canada. And I'm interested in the training because I feel like empathy is really needed in the world. And I think we need to develop the skills to actually communicate in an empathic way. And yeah, so I just want to be part of it. And also, I find that being part of this, I can meet people who actually are also interested in cultivating the skills and develop connections with them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. So Bill, followed by Stephen.
Sure. My name is Bill Filler. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a retired special education teacher. I've been working with Edwin for about, I guess, 4 years now. And I've been doing, as he said, the co-designer, not of the Empathy Circle, but of the training. And also I've done some street actions and things like that. I'm happy to be here. And it always is better to hear what you have to say than what I hear over the news. So thank you all for lifting my mood in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So Stephen, followed by Linda Bass, please.
Hi, I'm Stephen Landau. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico in the US. About a year and a half ago or so, I discovered the practice of empathy, and it's changing my life. I had no idea how much I needed it. And I'm inspired to do what I can to bring more of it into the world. So facilitating Empathy Circle seems like a good next step.
Thank you, Stephen. You're up now, Linda, followed by Jackie.
Yes, my name is Linda Bass. I am in Keller, Texas, which is near Fort Worth, Texas. I am a mediator and arbitrator, and this empathy training will help me develop my mediation and arbitration skills, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. So Jackie, followed by Martina.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I live in Cape Town, South Africa. Yeah, I'm here because I believe that it's holding empathy circles is a way I can contribute. Yeah, quite simply.
Thank you, Jackie. So Martina, you're up, followed by Cheyenne.
Hi, my name is Martina. I live in Surrey, Maine. And the first couple times I've done empathy circles, it's been extremely healing for me. And I teach meditation. And so I'm hoping to bring this practice to people and the people that I teach meditation to, hopefully also teens as well.
So thank you, Martina. So Cheyenne, followed by Michelle Grogan.
Hi, I'm Shyam, and I'm coming from Bangalore in the south of India. I've been part of 3 empathy circles, and they were quite magical in that they were quite therapeutic. And I'm here because if I was part of that magic, then I want to be able to create some of it myself. That's why I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you, Shyam. So Michelle, followed by Raid.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I am in Pickering, Ontario, which is just outside of Toronto. And I started a business listening therapy. And then I came across the empathy circles, and I thought it would just take my listening to a whole new level and be able to offer people more. So I'm really excited. And I agree, we need more empathy in this world. We need to start at a young age and get them while they're young so we keep going.
So I'm excited for you, Michelle. So Raid, can we switch Kevin off? Thank you. So Raid, you're up, followed by Al-Jazi.
Sounds good. Raed Hamzi, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I work in IT, and I'm interested in it to connect and communicate better with others. Simple as that.
Yeah, nice and simple. Thank you, Raid. So Al-Jazi, followed by Mrs. Tiffany.
Yes, Al-Jazi. I'm from Saudi Arabia. I'm interested in conflict resolution, and I think the empathy training will help with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Aljazi. So Mrs. Tiffany, followed by Mona.
I'm Tiffany. I live in Kansas City, Missouri. I work in healthcare, and I've joined the Empathy Circle to learn how to listen better.
Thank you, Tiffany. And so Mona, followed by Ralph.
My name is Mona. I'm originally from Egypt, but I'm living in Pittsburgh in the USA. I'm doing my master's degree in education and curriculum and instruction. And I've been with the Empathy Circle like for 8 months now. And I really fell in love with it. It's helped me to communicate better with my family and in my classes. And I hope to start to reach to other people and have empathy with others.
Thank you, Mona. So Ralph, followed by Afra.
Hi, I'm Ralph Gale, and I live just north of Boston. I'm a community minister, among other things, and most of the people that I encounter are unhoused substance users. And I find that the Empathy Circle process is great for instantly understanding and connecting people. And I think that empathy is a given for being human. Without empathy, we're just, I think, billiard balls colliding into each other. Yeah.
Thank you, Ralph.
You're welcome.
So Afra, you're up, followed by Shannon.
Yeah, I'm Afra. I'm coming from India. I'm a general surgeon, and I've joined this empathy mainly to improve relationships, both the personal and also with my patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Afra. So Shannon, you're up, followed by Kevin.
Thank you. I'm Shannon. I'm from Brattleboro, Vermont. I'm a psychologist and a teacher, and I'm looking forward to kind of thinking about how to bring this empathy circle into my classroom. So thank you. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Shannon. So Kevin, you're up.
Hello, my name is Kevin Patterson. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm a compliance officer and a behavior specialist. I'm looking forward to just opening my horizon to listen more and to be more empathetic and learning from this experience.
So thank you, Kevin. And that brings our check-ins to a close. And I now pass on to Bill.
Okay. So I'm going to address some of the feedback or questions, general questions, and they're just two. This is very early on in the course, so this list might expand. One of the things that people say is that, well, I don't have 2 hours, either in the classroom or in a business setting. And so as Edwin said, this is a basic practice. And if you can break it down, like when we started this facilitation practice, the first actually training was done with doctors in New York at about a year ago at the height of the pandemic. And so one of the things that they obviously on their shifts, they couldn't take 2 hours off from the COVID patients or do anything like that. But at the shift change, they could give each other 5 minutes of empathy or empathic listening. And that would be a tremendous boost. So that's just one example of how you can adapt this basic practice. The other ones, and we'll deal with this as we go through the course, about anger and safety, people who don't want to participate, people who don't like the process, are essentially disrupting the process in somehow. That depends upon how that occurs. Some people say, is this a safe space? We call it a brave space, which means is that we don't have any enforcement mechanism to go out and police, but essentially, if you follow the rules of the empathy circle and you stay in the process, things tend to work themselves out. But that's better demonstrated than me trying to explain it. So those are just some of the other ones. Are there any other burning questions that anybody has? I'm looking at you all on my computer. No, I don't see any. Okay. All right. All right, and so I will pass it off to Celine, who will do the course purpose and objectives.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm really glad to see you here. So the purpose of this training and of Empathy Circles is to practice, to create a culture of empathy. And here are some of the learning outcomes we hope you will take away from the training. That one, that you understand and become familiar with the goals and values and the core structure of the Empathy Circle so that you can guide others through the experience. And two, that you deepen your experience and skill of being an Empathy Circle facilitator. That you become aware of your strengths and learning edges as a facilitator, and to learn to respond to typical challenges that can arise in an empathy circle. And also that you leave this training having established strong bonds and a sense of community with each other, and that you continue to support each other with your training and growth towards building a culture of empathy. And the arc of the course, we have 5 sessions. And in the first session, the goal is, which is what we're doing now, review the Empathy Circle practice, be introduced to some of the core values of a culture of empathy, and to experience the benefits of the practice. In the second session, we focus on practicing the how-to, the introductions, and to begin to facilitate an empathy circle. In the third session, we'll demonstrate the how-to again, and we'll present more challenging circle situations as you feel ready to deal with them. In the fourth session, we'll get more time to facilitate and discuss challenges that might arise. And in the fifth session, the closing learnings and gather feedback about your experience. So now I am going to pass on to Rasha to talk about the core values and principles of a culture of empathy.
All right, thank you, Celine. So I'll take you through some of the core values and principles that are specific to building a culture of empathy, right, which is what we together are here for, to build and promote. So the practice of empathy circles, which we'll be diving into very soon, is a part of a larger vision, which is building a culture of empathy, right? Where people feel heard, where people feel connected, where people feel understood, right? So, and the aim is to promote empathic actions, not just between people, but between humans and nature as well, right? Irrespective of where we are from, irrespective of our nationalities, gender, caste, whatever it is, right? Whatever usually bounds people. And then the values that I'm going to be sharing, they're still a work in progress, but here are some of the core values for building a culture of empathy. I shall share it over here as well. So I've just posted in the chat. The first one obviously is empathy, right? And empathy, not just for others, but also for the self. So empathy in simple terms is stepping into the shoes of another person, right? Sensing their thoughts and feelings in order to take appropriate actions towards that person. So that's what empathy in simple terms is. And but with the realization that their world is theirs and my world is mine. And that boundary is very connected to self-empathy, right? Which is sensing and feeling into one's own experience. And that basically is the most important value. And that's empathy. The next one is mutuality. So mutuality is all about reciprocating, right? So when somebody shows or behaves with me through empathy, then I give it back so that there is a mutual experience of the value, right? So we aspire to reciprocate empathy between all people. And the third one is openness. Like, look at us, right? From different parts of the world gathered here. And so it's only natural that all of us have very different perspectives, right? And so what we call on is for openness, where we let go of judgments of all sorts and we open our minds to anything and everything, right? Openness, not just when we express ourselves to others within, breakout rooms, but also while we are listening to others, right? And this is how we build a culture of empathy. And the last one is care. Care, that is having a sense of what is important for the well-being of those around you, right? And those in your circle. It's a huge part of care is also self-care, right? Where we take care of, where you take care of yourself by setting limitations, boundaries as you deem necessary, and also making sure that you are comfortable first, right? So that others feel into that comfort and they get comfortable too. So this is not an exhaustive list. There are other values that we hold close to heart as well in order to build a culture of empathy, like curiosity, right? If you're not genuinely curious about another person, how do you listen with all your heart, right? So curiosity and equality, where all of us, irrespective of where we come from or our, age, we're all equal, right? So these are some of the values, and I'll now pass on to Edwin. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rasha. So we had asked you all to mention 3 of your most important values, and you filled out the Menti meter form. And I want to show you a word cloud of the values that you had shared. So this is, hopefully that's coming, there we go. So these are the values that everyone put in, and every cohort that we do is a little bit different. The word cloud is a little bit different of what that group values. And you can see we had everything for transparent honesty, loving kindness, mindfulness, openness, courage, equality, safety, balance, integrity, congruence, family, listening fully. So there's many, many different values that you all put in here. And with empathy, we want to be able to connect with and empathize with each of those values. And what we're wanting to also do is see how do your values relate to empathy and a culture of empathy. And that's what we're going to be discussing here in our empathy circle shortly. And to describe the empathy circle process, you all have taken part in it, or so are familiar with it, but Bill is going to go and give a short introduction, a review of the empathy circle process. So take it away, Bill.
Sure. So the empathy circle has essentially 4 roles. One role is the facilitator role, and you don't really have to, if you're a participant in the breakout room, you don't have to really worry about that. The only thing that you should know is that if the facilitator corrects you or anything like that, it's not a criticism of you or your ideas. It's just to keep you in the process. We believe that there's an intellectual discussion going on, but there's also an emotional shift that's going on. And so sticking with this process allows that emotional shift underneath to happen. So that's very important. The next role is the speaker, and the speaker has a certain amount of time to speak on the topic, which is in this case about the empathy circle and the training, or whatever on your mind. You can go off, I had this for breakfast and it was wonderful. And that's what if that's alive for you, then you can go and that you will be reflected. A tip for the speaker is to try to pause fairly often. So just so that the listener can, reflect what you said and not have to make it into a memory test. The active listener is the trickiest part. And so this takes, sometimes just don't worry about it if you feel a little uncomfortable. It's normal because it's different from a regular conversation. And instead of listening to respond, we're listening to reflect. And that means that even if agreeing, oh yeah, or I had an experience like this, we're not really looking for that at that time. When it's your turn to speak as a speaker, you can choose to do whatever you want to do, and respond or judge or do whatever. But as the active listener, we're just trying to reflect as purely as possible what the speaker is saying. And we just focus on that. And you can reflect the words, the feelings, the values, paraphrase, however you want to do that, as best you can. It's a skill that we build. And then the fourth actually is the silent listeners, and it's pretty self-descriptive. You're sitting there, but you are holding the circle and you're listening and things like that. And so as a silent listener, a lot of times you will then get a sense of the dynamic of the circle, and then it will trigger you to respond or do something else. So many times the circle goes where it goes. So we emphasize a certain part of the topic or we go off topic. And that's part of the excitement and the fun of the empathy circle. Have I left anything out, anybody? No? Okay. You'll see it demonstrated. And so then, it should be fairly easy. Okay. So I will pass it off to Celine, who will talk about the breakout room description. Thanks.
Thank you. So this is a learn by doing opportunity. We jump right in and we experience it and onward. No more discussions or lectures or anything of that sort. And we are going to start with breaking into groups of 4 or 5 and doing an actual empathy circle. One of the trainers or trainees will facilitate the circle, and the turns will be 5 minutes each. And the topic is, how does one of your values relate to empathy and a culture of empathy, or whatever is alive for you? That is always an option, to speak about whatever is alive for you. We will be in the circle about an hour and a half, and then we will come back to the full group to debrief. So that's what's next.
Okay, thanks, Celine. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, 5 groups. Let's see, the first one will be organized by Rasha, and that will stay in the main room here. I'll join you. And the second one is Graham, and then we have Celine and Francesca and Bill. So we'll go into our breakout rooms now. And
so one very simple question.
Yeah.
Will I be, for example, in my group, will I be facilitating? Nobody else would do the facilitation.
Yeah, you'll be the only facilitator in your group. And you can also be the first listener. We have, like Celine said, 5-minute turns, and we have about an hour and a half, and 10 minutes before I'll send a notice to everyone that we're going to, just to give you a heads up that we'll be closing in 10 minutes, so you can sort of wrap up. So yeah. So again, just to reiterate the question, how does one of your most important values relate to empathy or a culture of empathy? And again, whatever is alive for you, and it's in the chat too, so as a reference. So here we go into our breakout rooms. And you should see a little button that lets you get into your room. And somehow, Rasha, my computer resources are kind of low, so I may have to turn off my monitor sometimes. But anyway, this is our group where there's 5 in this group, so yeah.
All right, welcome you all, Tiffany, Shannon, and Stephen. All right, so let's begin. Before we begin, I just want to ask whether you have any questions at all about the process. If there are no burning questions, let's get started. It's a fairly simple process, and I'm sure you'll get it as we go along, right? So yeah, like it was mentioned, each of us will get 5-minute turns to speak. I'll also be participating. And when the time is up, I'll show this just to let you know that time is up, right? So yeah, let's get started, and I'll volunteer to be the first listener. So if any of you would like to start, if any of you would like to be the first speaker. Yeah, Janet, go on. I'll be your listener, yeah. Just make sure to speak in small chunks so that I have the chance to reflect back. That's the only thing you need to remember right now. Yeah, go on.
Sounds good. So happy to be here, collecting my thoughts. I do have some lingering questions, but I imagine those are going to be addressed as time goes on. So I'm just kind of trying to stay receptive at this time and take things in.
All right, Shannon. So what I hear you say is that you're just trying to collect your thoughts. You do have a couple of lingering questions, but you're sure that as time goes by, you're going to get a hang of it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So receptive right now to the process, and also kind of have thoughts coming in and out about imagining how I apply this to the classroom, because I have to say, like, as a early career professor, it's been a little tricky to learn how the art of it. And I have a sense that it involves this exactly, like really, I think from my experience of the empathy circles, it really brings a person's experience to life in a way that just like lecturing or giving information doesn't seem to be working. And so I'm really fascinated by the idea of bringing this into education.
all right, Shannon, so you're very much open, you're keeping your mind open to thoughts. And as a professor who's just beginning, and you're really looking for ways to bring this to your classroom, right? And you feel that this is what is needed there in the classroom. And from your experience with the empathy circles, you feel that it brings to life experiences, right? And that is what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think when people have their thoughts and feelings reflected back to them, it not only, it lets them know that those thoughts and feelings and ideas are of value, and then they are able to commit more fully to them and learn better, I think. And so, so I think that can be something that's really, for people of all ages, that's important. But so yeah, just kind of reflecting on the experience of going through this, and that's kind of what's on my mind.
All right, Shannon. So
sure, yeah.
So what I hear you say is that you just, okay, reflecting on how it goes. And you're saying that if when somebody reflects back to you after listening, it gives you the idea that, you know, whatever you're saying is valued, right? That is very important within classrooms. And yeah, and that's what is going through your mind, your experience of having gone through the empathy circles.
Yeah. And I know my time is probably coming close to an end, but just to incorporate like one of the values that I named, which was, well, I named honesty, integrity, and love. And I think if somebody really feels heard, they become more honest, because there's no reason to put a facade up if everyone's on the same page, I think, something like that. So I can see that becoming more of a culture in the classroom.
All right, so the values that you put in were honesty, integrity, and I don't remember the third one, but you're saying that when someone feels really heard, then that makes them more honest, right? And that is a value that's very important in the classroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's all for now. Those were the two that pertain to my idea, so you got that, but the third one was love, and maybe I'll speak to that later.
All right, so yeah, you have a third one which you choose to speak about later.
Yeah.
And yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasha.
You feel heard?
Yes, I feel very heard. Thank you for reflecting me back to me.
Thank you, Shannon. All right, so now I'm the new speaker, and yeah, so Tiffany, would you like to be my listener?
Absolutely. Hi, Rasha.
Hi.
Hi, Shannon from last week.
Hi, Tiffany.
All right, so so one of the values that I put in was courage, and I feel that even for the practice of empathy, even to practice what we are doing right now, it does take courage at some level, right? I mean, it's kind of coming to an unfamiliar environment that we are not used to on a day-to-day basis, and we are trying to make it familiar and kind of, you know, build connections. So yeah, so I just wanted to start talking about courage.
Yes, what I hear you saying is that it takes a lot of courage to be empathetic, but you have to take those steps in order to normalize it and be a better communicator.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I said, but yeah, you could say that's also in my mind. I'm just trying to say that courage, has levels. And, at a small level, I feel that, even this step of each of us coming to an empathy circle and starting to learn is, a step in courage. And that step is essential to be more empathic.
So what you're saying is just taking that first step of courage is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
As far as.
Yeah, and an example is where we come here, all of us together, just even to practice an empathy circle. Even that is courage, yeah.
Yes. And even joining, this empathy circle is the first step, is a big step, is a courageous step.
Yeah, that's right. And what else? So I had a long day. It's raining heavily in my state of Kerala in India. It's been raining since yesterday night, non-stop. Yeah, I'll stop there.
So where you are, it's been raining a lot since yesterday.
Yeah. And 2 years back, around the same time, I think it was around August 8th, that it started raining heavily in my hometown, which is around 6 hours from where I live. So it started raining so heavily, and a few days later, it got flooded, and my parents kind of, somehow escaped while they had water up till here. So because of that, every time, especially around this month when it starts raining heavily, I start getting worried about how things will go in my hometown. Yeah.
You say your parents? You say your parents?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. Yeah, so you were saying that a couple of years ago it rained and it flooded. So when it rains now, you think about their safety or what's going on there.
That's right. And yeah, but the good news is that even though it's raining very heavily over here, the rain hasn't been so intense back in my hometown. So that's kind of a huge relief. But I've been calling them every now and then just to check on how things are going there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a relief to know that they're not getting as much rain as you are, and you've been checking on them, and that's how you know.
That's right. Yes, and yeah, and about other values, I think empathy was one of them, and another one I think was honesty. No, it was authenticity. Yeah, and the reason why I put authenticity is because I grew up in a culture where we are trained not to show our true selves, especially in the education system. Yeah.
You say in your culture, you're not really brought up to be authentic.
Yeah. Yeah, we are not encouraged to be authentic because it's a culture where there's so much focus on perfection, right? Even in schools, we are so pushed to be more and more perfect, because of which we end up growing up scared to show our true selves, scared to show failure, right? And yeah.
Yeah. So how you were brought up, what you mean about inauthenticity is that you're expected to be perfect. So anything other than that, you can't show it.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and so which is why authenticity in my later, like a couple of years ago, is when I discovered it, the importance of it, and I'm kind of, fighting these years of culture and trying to be more authentic. And with that, my time is up. So yeah, Tiffany.
So you're basically saying you're trying to fight that and come out of that a bit more, what you've been taught or your culture.
Yes, thank you. I feel heard. So now you're the new speaker and you can choose your listener, Tiffany.
Stephen, how are you today? Would you mind listening to me?
I would love to listen to you, Ms. Tiffany. Thank you.
I just have my students would call me that. You could just call me Tiffany.
Okay, Tiffany.
I forgot the 3 things that I wrote. I did. I should have written them down. I typed them in and then I went on to something else.
So you forgot what you wrote down and you went on to something else, and now you're like, whoa, what should I write? What should I talk about?
Right. I believe empathy, I didn't want to say listening because I think, that's used a lot, but I think I was really big on respect. I think I chose respect. That was definitely one of them, because to me, that is synonymous with empathy.
Okay, so for you, empathy and respect are the same thing. So you think that's what you chose?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like you can disagree with me, but if you respect me, you could still practice empathy.
Mhm. So why that connection is that even if I disagree with you, if I respect you, then I can empathize with you.
Right, absolutely. And there are certain things you will say and certain things you will do to let me know that you've at least heard me, even if you disagree.
I can let you know that I've really heard you, even if I disagree, because there's ways to do that.
Right. And I don't feel that those ways are necessarily shown to me. And I also want to make sure that I show them to others.
Okay, I'm not sure I understood what you said first about being shown to you. Would you say that again?
Like empathy, one of the reasons why I joined this circle is because I don't feel like it's been shown to me.
I see.
And I want to make sure that I show it to others.
Okay, I got it. Yeah. One of your big motivations for wanting to be in this training is because you feel like in your life, maybe not so many people have shown that much empathy to you, which is also respect, because that's what you said before. And you want to take steps to make extra sure that you're showing that to other people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. And I want to make sure that it's done with immediacy. There are times when people, they have listened to me, but it took them a while to understand what I was saying. And sometimes in life, we don't have a long while. So I need, right while we're here having coffee, I need you to understand me.
Okay. You really like it when someone can show you that they've heard you correctly and understood you right now, not like go away and think about it and then come back, but like you need to know they've heard you in this present moment that you're in with them.
Mhm. That's exactly right, Stephen. I don't know if it's fair to ask for that, if that's how the human mind works, but I'd rather not have to wait months for you to understand what I mean.
So you have some doubts about whether it's fair, but you sure like it that way.
Right, right. And that's all. I feel very heard by you, Stephen. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. I enjoyed listening to you.
Thank you. Stephen?
I guess it's my turn. Edwin, are you in the game? Or are you
I
just
am.
observing?
Yes. No, I'm here. I'm listening.
Great. Well, then I would love for you to listen to me then.
Okay, listening.
Okay, let's see. I had a lot of trouble at first with the assignment to go to this website and name your 3 most important values. It was like, wait just a minute, I have to do that right now? I need to think about that. What the hell are my 3 most important values? So that was my immediate experience.
Yeah, so you're just sharing your immediate experience. Like it just seemed a bit of a struggle to name your 3 most important values. It sounds like you need a little bit more time or to sort of think about it.
Yeah, it was the most important part that got me. I have a lot of values, but so the first one I put down was transparency / honesty. And the website didn't allow me to put a slash, so I just put a space. Anyway, transparency and honesty was the first one I put. And
yeah, so transparency and honesty are the first one.
Yeah, I was going to try to say why. I really resonate with what Rasha said about the culture not promoting transparency and honesty. You used the word authenticity, and I don't think my culture is quite as extreme that way, but I think there's something about being male that means I have to hide more in my culture. And I have a lot of emotional stuff that always goes on under the surface. I think everyone does. Maybe mine's more just because I'm that kind of person or whatever. It's so much freaking effort to hold that down. I've just decided to not, because I just don't really want to do it.
Do you feel that in this culture that you're in, that as being a male, it's harder to kind of share what's going on with you, and you've just decided that it's just too much effort not to share it, so you're going to do it, share more?
Yeah, I actually think it has something to do with class also. It seems to me like people of a certain class are encouraged more than others to be proper. And I have a very interesting kind of class background. I mostly identify as a working man, and it's really I just don't understand middle class speak. I really don't. I can be in a group of people and they're talking, I go, I don't know what the hell is really being said here. And it's very uncomfortable.
So you feel that certain classes are sort of not allowed to express themselves sort of honestly, and it's sort of a class, maybe perhaps a class issue, and being from sort of a middle class group, that you find it difficult to actually, if you're in a group with other middle class, to really understand what they're talking about, or really relate to, or understand what's going on.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if it's that I have a kind of a deep intuition that other stuff is going on that people aren't talking about, and it just comes up energetically, and it so much is present what isn't being said that I cannot bear what is being said. It's so frustrating.
So it's like there's a lot under the surface. It's not being said. You're sensing it, and it's just so frustrating that you just can't, bring it up and out, or it's not being brought up by the others. Just a lot of frustration about that.
Yeah, can you tell? Yeah, a lot of frustration. So I want to connect that for a second to the empathy circle. I bet my time's almost up, but I want to try to say this, which is, I think the empathy circle begins to be a solution to my frustration, because from one side, it encourages people to be with and share what's actually really going on. From the other side, it encourages me to listen to what they're really saying, whether I have ideas about what they're feeling or not. And so it forces me to actually pay attention to the words. Yeah.
So you think the empathy circle might actually contribute to people expressing themselves and the others being forced to listen, express themselves more honestly, and then others to listen, include yourself, especially
specifically
yourself.
me to listen.
You,
yes.
So you're speaking specifically for you. It forces you to listen more clearly.
Yeah. Thank you, Edwin.
Okay, then speak to Shannon. So I was hearing terms like honesty, authenticity, transparency, and I think those all relate to the value of openness, which we were saying is one of the core values to a culture of empathy. So I guess I want to speak a little bit around how those values may be, how I see them interrelating and relating to empathy circles.
Thanks for your patience. So I heard you saying that you're thinking about words like honesty and transparency, and sort of kind of how they relate to openness and maybe some of the other core values of the empathy circles. And So that's what I've heard so far.
Yeah. And it's like, I find that in the empathy circle, it's like, it's knowing that you will be heard sort of develops a sense of trust. If I know, like now I know you're going to listen to me, right? It's like, oh, okay, Shannon's going to be listening. I don't have to compete for attention. You know, I don't have to worry about being interrupted. That Shannon is going to listen in this empathy circle. And that sort of develops a sense of trust for me. And as I develop more trust, I feel more able to open and be transparent.
So what I heard you say is that kind of the experience of being in the empathy circle, if you know somebody's listening, leads to a sense of trust that you can, and you didn't use this word, but like you can sort of relax and kind of rest assured that, you know, the other person will kind of catch what you're saying and you can kind of focus on your experience.
Yeah. Because I know for myself in groups, I always find it difficult in groups, like knowing how to step into a group, like where there's space to share something. And then I find as I sort of hold back, and the more I hold back, the more disconnected I get and the farther, more withdrawn I get. And then when I do blurt something out, it's with such force, you know, that it's kind of like feel like, what's all this energy about? So with the empathy circle, you know, I just don't have that. I don't have that fear about not being heard, like in groups sometimes.
So it's like you're sharing the experience of kind of being in a group and not being sure of where to kind of speak up or when, and then you find yourself withdrawing further and further, and then maybe getting in this sort of imbalanced place where you could blurt something out and then being misinterpreted by others in the group. So it sort of perpetuates the isolation.
Yeah, a bit of a dysfunctional, being a little bit dysfunctional in the group in that sense. The other thing I was thinking is like both you and Tiffany had talked about, you know, education. And I really see that the empathy circle is something for students to do, like at the beginning of a class, where they could have an empathy circle with each other, even if it's just going for a round or two, just so that everyone feels heard. And it just creates a bit of, takes a lot of the stress out of, you know, just bringing people into to feel heard and connected. And so I see a lot of potential for empathy circles in schools, and wish it was kind of taught there.
Yeah, that's so what I heard you saying is that you kind of completed your thought from before, that there could be some dysfunction that comes up when someone tries to share. And maybe this is connected with the next idea of like this idea of using empathy and empathy circles in schools, and especially in the beginning of class, maybe so that everyone has that chance to feel heard before kind of moving on to the material. And maybe that's a way to kind of create a functioning group.
And a culture of empathy in the schools. I like to see that be an explicit intention, is like, how do we create a culture of empathy in the school? And then all the students, teachers are doing empathy circles with each other. And it's a gateway also to conflict resolution. So if conflict ends up in the playground or wherever, it's like the students say, hey, there's a conflict. What do? We have an empathy circle to work it through. So it's, I just see the potential. I just like a little frustrated because I just see what could be. It's like, let's get it out there. And it's like, you know, it's such a big problem to get it out to the whole world schools, but it's like, I just see the potential.
Yeah. So I hear you saying that there's such great potential when you bring this empathy circle into a school, because it could become, and you didn't use this phrase, but awesome. You didn't use this exact phrase, but it could become almost like muscle memory. Like if there's a conflict, like let's go to an empathy circle. And if that gets baked into the culture, it really, you know, there's so much change could happen as a result of that.
Yeah, and I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
Speaker, you can select your listener.
Okay. Let's see. Rasha, do you want to be my listener? Were you my listener last time? Oh, okay. Should we choose a different listener, or how does that work usually?
I'd suggest you choose different listeners so that you have an experience with everybody, but it's completely up to you. If there's something you want to say to anybody from any of the conversation that just happened, feel free to do that as well.
Okay, great. Stefan, if you would listen, I'll speak to you.
I would love to.
Yeah. So a lot is alive for me at the moment. Just playing with all the ideas that have been thrown out there, all the awesome ideas actually that have been kind of thrown out there, and trying to process and integrate them all at one time is a task. But this idea of creating a culture of empathy in schools, and paired with like challenging students and staff and faculty to bring maybe more authenticity to the table. Like Stefan and Rasha had said, so often we're discouraged from doing that. And so I'll stop there.
Okay, so you got a lot of live inside from stuff that's been said so far. And one thing is this idea of bringing empathy into the schools. And you said quite a few things, but I think the kernel of it was that just for teachers and students to bring more authenticity to the table in the educational environment.
And I just saw your message, so I hope you got the break you were looking for, but I felt very heard by that reflection.
I totally did. Yeah, I went off screen and came back. Thanks for your concern.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, so just thinking about that, kind of reflecting on my own experience and how it relates to the values, kind of going back to my values. And realizing that it's kind of easy to fill out, or I at least found it relatively easy to fill out my values at the time. Like, oh, okay, I know for sure that I value honesty, transparency, and love. And then like experiencing the empathy circle right now and being like, okay, that's pretty challenging actually, like to bring that to the table all the time and to challenge other people to do the same. Like that's not a small feat. So sort of sitting with that right now.
You found it easy to go to the form and fill out 3 words that you really believe in, but it's a different story. In the empathy circle, actually, I would say you probably meant like living it, like being here with us with your 3 words. It's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a good challenge. I think challenge in a way that I really appreciate. I think I do appreciate what Rasha said about it taking courage in a way that it's a muscle I'm not used to trying to flex. So it's interesting. It's new, and maybe shouldn't be so new, but it is, so.
It takes courage to be here, and you're enjoying the challenge. And something at the end there about maybe it shouldn't be so challenging, but hey, it is.
Yeah, or maybe it shouldn't be such a new thing. Like, if we had a culture of empathy, we might be used to, feeling challenged in this way, and it might not, it might be a more regular experience, I guess, or current.
Yeah. How nice it would be if we lived in a culture that really challenged us to be brave and courageous like this more. That you would enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel very heard. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, that was nice. Okay. Tiffany, will you listen to me?
Yeah, sure.
I have no idea what to say now. We could start there. Let's see here.
You're all talked out, huh?
Well, that's rarely so. I just, for the moment, let's see. I guess what's alive in me just in this moment is how much I really enjoyed listening to Shannon, you know, just being a listener. Yeah, I felt a lot of energy in my body, and I happened to enjoy what she was talking about too. Yeah, I'll stop there for a sec.
So what I'm hearing is that you really enjoyed listening to Shannon, and there was some sort of connection to what she was saying. You really identified what she was saying.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm just asking myself, did I enjoy it because I agreed with her, or did I just enjoy it? I mean, that's an important question. I think both, actually. I enjoyed the process of listening, and I enjoyed the content.
You enjoyed listening to her, and you enjoyed what she said, what she talked about.
Another value I put on that form was integrity, congruence. They're similar to me. Like integrity is kind of like doing what you say you're going to do and doing what you believe in and not doing what you don't believe in. And that's like congruence, you know, your inside matching your outside. I find it's just similar to what I said before. I just find it exhausting to not be congruent, which doesn't mean that I'm always congruent, because, you know, I've got habits as much as anyone else. But I still find it really tiring. Okay, I'll pause there.
What I heard is that you chose integrity and congruence because it's so important for you to say what you mean and mean what you say and do what you say that you're going to do. You question whether or not you always do it, or you know you may not have always done it, and you find it exhausting, or not being that way exhausting. But it's still very important to you.
Yeah, just to put a point on it, I don't question whether I always do it. I know I don't always do it, and it's just sort of autopilot, you know. Let's see.
Feel free to reflect that back, Tiffany, if you want to.
That little piece, Tiffany, about it, and I'm not really questioning whether I'm congruent. I know I'm not always congruent, but that's autopilot, you know.
And you're saying that you know that you're not always like that.
Yeah. I'm sort of reaching for what else to say right now, so I think I'll just stop there. I'll come back to another next turn. Yeah.
That's pretty much all you have to say for right now. And I believe that you touched on all three of the values at this point, now that we've gone around in 2 rounds.
I'm not sure if I have or not, but it's more than I can think about right now, so I'll take it to the next turn.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Edwin?
Yep, listening.
Would you like to listen to me?
Sure.
I guess I'm shocked that I'm more open with strangers than I probably am with people I know.
So you're really feeling some shock that you're more open with people that are strangers than with the people that you're close to or that you know.
Yeah, but like, yeah, exactly. Shouldn't I feel weird that I feel more comfortable sharing stuff with Shannon than the actual people who probably could benefit from hearing it?
Yeah, so you just like, it's kind of weird that I'm sharing this with Shannon and not with people who really need to hear this.
Yeah. So I agree with Rasha that it's very courageous coming here. But I also want to say it's probably daunting, completely daunting to say the same thing to people I know. Yeah.
So it is courageous to be here and share, but it's like daunting to share with people that you do know, to share your truth or honesty.
Yeah. So there's that. And the second thing that I was thinking about is I was questioning, why is empathy such a soft skill or considered, you know, I guess maybe even gender specific when it probably should be gender neutral.
Yeah, so you're kind of like wondering, why do people consider empathy this soft skill, and that maybe it's more gender specific, maybe meaning like females are more empathic, and it should be really equal among everyone.
Absolutely. And why was my first thought last week, why is a guy over this named Edwin, when women understand it better? And I think that's, to even have those kind of thoughts are unfair, right?
Yeah, so when you first did it, it's like, you're wondering, how is this guy Edwin doing this? It should be a woman doing it, because men aren't as empathic.
Yeah, that's how I felt. So I've been questioning myself, why am I thinking these things that aren't necessarily true?
So you're like wondering why you're even having those thoughts, like questioning that it would be a male that's leading the group or organizing it.
Absolutely. What's Stephen doing here? What's going on? All these thoughts.
What's going on? There's two males here. They're not supposed to be empathic.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking, and that's pretty much all I have to say. Thanks for listening, Edwin. I feel heard.
Okay, so that's what you have for now. So thanks. So Rasha, can I speak to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. My sense is that empathy is it doesn't matter the gender. We all have a capacity for empathy. Maybe the culture doesn't, a specific culture doesn't value it, but the capacity is there for everyone.
All right, Edwin. So what I hear you say is that what you feel is that empathy is the capacity to be empathic is there with everybody, right? And maybe our cultures do not let us practice it as much as we should, but yeah, it's a capacity everybody has.
And I think not only should it be taught in the schools, but then like when you get into relationships, right? Romantic, relationships, it should be core to, males, females, whatever gender, whatever sort of relationship that you have, empathy practice in the relationship, and not wait until things blow up and then go to marriage, family counseling to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, so what you're saying is just like empathy is important in education, empathy is as much or more important when it comes to spousal relationships, or and not just spousal, like relationships and romantic relationships. Be it a man, be it a woman, everybody who's involved need to practice empathy, and and instead of waiting until things blow up, when they run to counseling centers.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then also, not only does it need to be in the schools, but in the families. So we hold family empathy circles. I did see family was a value for someone, on the chart there. So to have a really effective family, I think is having a culture of empathy in the family, where all the family members can be heard. I mean, every family I've heard of, there's all kinds of conflict. People don't feel heard, they don't feel acknowledged, or there's all kinds of subtle things, different personalities, and they get sort of, at least in my family, actually, the stuff gets buried under the carpet, right? And then there's these blow ups, and so I think regular family empathy circles is something that can really help, and I've done those with my extended family.
What I hear you say, Edwin, is just like we need it in schools, we also need empathy in family, right? Because within families with different personalities, and there are always subtle differences, and in your family, you feel that you sometimes put under the carpet like some very important things that need to be discussed, and empathy circles is a way to kind of bring all of that out, and for families to get together and practice it. So you feel it's extremely family. Empathy circles are also really important, and you've also practiced it with your extended family.
Yeah, it's sort of a safe way. It's like it gives everyone equal time. That's like in relationships, like somebody talks more than the other person, you get a little resentment. At least I am that way. Like there's family members, they do all the talking and I get kind of resentful. There's not a space for me, it's like I don't want to have to compete for a space, or they're not. So there's all those kind of issues in the empathy circle. It's just that all the family members, everyone can get hurt, even the little kids. I've done empathy circles with my nephews and nieces, and they're like 5, 6, and 7, and they can already, take part. So I'm kind of hoping too that if we can get into the schools, then the students can bring it home to their families. Say, hey, we're gonna have. I can just imagine a 7-year-old saying, hey, let's have a family empathy circle, and they become the facilitator. That'd be kind of cool.
Right. So what I hear you say, Edwin, is about these family empathy circles. One of the best things about it is that it gives equal time to everyone who's participating, right? I mean, usually in relationships, if one person speaks more, then there tends to be resentment. And so that issue can be resolved if we practice empathy circles, equal time everybody, even children, right? So in empathy circles, you have included your nieces and nephews. I think they are, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, around that age group. And so even they get to practice empathy circles. And you're also thinking that, a way to get this done is by first introducing them to schools from where children will go home and speak about empathy circles, and it'll end up getting to families.
Yeah, I can just imagine these kids. Oh, that's my time. I feel fully heard. Thanks. Also, your audio is a little bit low. I don't know if you can get closer to the microphone. Sometimes it's a little hard to hear you, and there's a bit of an echo when you're farther away. So.
All right. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Edwin. And yeah, so Stephen, would you like to be my listener?
Sure, I'd love to. I'm going to just put these in so I can listen better. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. All right. So, yeah. Wow. I'm really excited to hear Edwin's thoughts on bringing empathy circles to, to schools and families. And all of a sudden, I'm just having all these ideas on how, maybe we can all work together to get it actually to schools in my hometown and in the area where I live. So, yeah.
All of a sudden, you're excited thinking about all these ideas that are coming of how to bring empathy into your hometown, into families, into schools, inspired by what Edwin's been sharing.
Exactly. And I also want to speak a little more about something you brought up some time back about, how being men, somehow you end up having to hide more, especially when it comes to emotions, right? Than women. We being women, we just are free to put out all the drama, show all our emotions. But when it comes to men, somehow society puts this pressure on you to kind of hide emotions and maybe show a more, I don't know, rough exterior.
Yeah. You wanted to turn your attention to what I brought up before about being a man and feeling that we men are put in the position of having to hide our feelings a lot, belittle a lot more inauthentic in that area.
Yeah. And also what you were saying about, classes, right? I mean, I come from India. It's a country where casteism was a major part of the culture, and it still continues to be. I mean, people don't really talk about it, but it's there somewhere. And I was also, it reminded me of the systems that we have here when you were, talking about class. And it came as a surprise to me because that's just not how we see the West, right? I mean, we don't, think of the culture they're having, classes, and it came as quite a surprise to me.
And you're also thinking about this other thing I said about class and authenticity. And being from India, where casteism still exists implicitly, even though it's been done away with explicitly, it's not done away with. And you expressed surprise that a class system might exist in the US or in the West in general.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm also, one other thing that that just, was in my head while we were having these conversations is how, while you began with, how you are not able to express all that's under, all that you keep, within you, despite that, now that you are in a place where you can just pour out whatever is inside, somewhere I sense a little bit of difficulty in kind of, just letting it all pour out. And I'm assuming that it's possibly because of all these years of learning or years of conditioning to kind of just keep things inside, right? Which makes it difficult for people, even if they get the opportunity to just like speak out, it becomes really hard, right? Because of the conditioning.
Let me see if I got that. I'm not sure. You're talking about something else I said about really liking to just let it all be there, and that I try to do that, but that sometimes I find myself still not, my inside and my outside not matching exactly, because you were imagining that it's because there's still this, leftover parts of the oppression that I haven't gotten free of yet. Is that kind of what you meant? Or that it's
what I meant, at least the second part, but the first bit, what I was trying to say is, this is how I sensed, this is the sense of what I could understand about you from during the previous conversations that were going on, that I think my time's up. So maybe I'll continue during the next round. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure there's anything for me to reflect there, except that your time's up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay, it's my turn to speak again. Oh, Lord. Let's see. I had Edwin and Tiffany, right? So Shannon, you want to listen to me?
Yes, happy to.
Okay, all right, here we are. I really wish I understood what Rasha was saying right there at the end, but I guess I might get another chance. That would be great. Let me pause there, collect my thoughts, and you can reflect that much so far.
You're kind of stuck wondering what Rasha was going to say right then, and looking forward to perhaps hearing next.
Yeah. I kind of like, and I like this level of interaction we're having. It's kind of not just me speaking about myself in a void, but there's a little bit of responding, but in a really respectful way that's still totally within this model, it seems. I'm really enjoying that.
You're liking the way we're interacting right now, that it feels that it's in this very respectful way that you're really enjoying kind of responding to each other. I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Now I'm thinking some about why I wanted to be in this training to begin with. And I shared earlier that, I discovered the practice of empathy through another direction about 1.5 years ago, when a very important relationship of mine ended. And I realized there are many reasons why it ended, but it was at least partly because of the way I spoke and listened. And so this 1.5 years has been really about strengthening the parts of me that can listen well and speak better. Yeah.
okay. So what I heard is that this conversation has you kind of thinking about your initial reasons for being in this training to begin with, and brings you back to roughly 1.5 years ago when a relationship that was very important to you ended, and that there were many reasons, but one of them is you think may be related to your thinking and your kind of listening and empathizing. And so I hear you reflecting back on that.
Yeah, but to sharpen it, it's not that I think that that's what it was. I know that's what it was, and that this is really giving me, this practice of empathy is giving me a way to, what's the word? Correct it or balance it, or yeah, be better at it. Yeah.
This training is giving you a way to improve on those things.
Yeah, not just this training, but the whole practice I've been engaged in for 1.5 years. And let's see. Sometimes it takes a while for my thoughts to congeal. I get very nervous inside when I know that there's something very real and important to me that I want to say. And then my nerves make me forget what it is. So you can reflect that while I think.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. You reflect, you kind of commented that it hasn't just been the training, but it's been part of this whole practice through which you've tried to address what happened in that relationship, and that you weren't empathic or listening as much as you would have liked. And something really important is coming up for you right now. And you reflected in the moment that sometimes when that happens, it can feel, I don't know, maybe like you're on a high balancing beam and you get wobbly and kind of lose track.
Yeah, it's a nice image. I know that it's changing my life. It's changing my consciousness, not just my habit, not just the way I talk and speak, but the way I think and am aware of in the world. It's changing my consciousness. Oh yeah, this is the really important thing. And one of the reasons why I want to take the next step of leading empathy circles, perhaps, is it's generous to the world, but it's more like it's for me. It's this idea that you always teach what you need to learn, like if I take the next step in bringing it out, it brings it in. And that's what I want. That's really, it's selfish in a way. It's generous and selfish at the same time.
So I heard you say a lot just then. reflecting that it's being a part of this to the extent you have been already has changed your consciousness, and that you're wanting more of that. You're wanting to kind of continue down that road, and that, you know, in a way you could see learning to lead empathy circles as being generous and helping others, but from the standpoint you were kind of going along, it's actually giving back to yourself at the same time.
Yeah, really wanting to consolidate. I just want more for me. Great, that's my time. Thank you so much, Shannon.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I will speak to Edwin.
Yep, listening.
So I'm reflecting now that when there is such a good process going, kind of following along the themes I've been hearing, it's can feel almost like expression and listening become almost one, so that when you're really listening very closely, you can feel like they're your ideas just as much, or that you're actually co-creating something, even though they're very much the other person's ideas, of course. And I'm just playing around with that idea that it can be a very rich experience, where I guess that's where mutuality comes in, when there's a reciprocal empathy between people. Listening and expressing kind of blend.
Yeah, you're saying that the mutual empathy, the listening and reflect, the speaking and reflecting, it sort of blends, where it's like the ideas, it becomes sort of shared ideas. It's not one or the other. You kind of share. It's a co-creation that's happening.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I think makes a culture of empathy. I'm just trying to put all these ideas together, so different from other sorts of cultures where it might be the norm to kind of identify differences and compete, like you had mentioned, Edwin, like that competition looms large in certain cultures, and that might be the way other cultures can differ so markedly. And it's no small difference, is what I'm realizing. Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have some insight about you can relate in a competitive way where you compete with each other. And then there's this other more empathic way, which is a co-creation of mutual listening, and seeing those as two different forms, ways of relating.
Mm-hmm. And two radically different sorts of experiences just of oneself in the world, I think. And just kind of, I don't know, having respect for people's journeys that brought them here and wanting to foster that, because it can be such a radical welcoming and like radical change in your life, I think.
So you're saying that maybe coming from a competitive worldview, you have a felt experience within that, and it's very radical experience shift to be in a mutually empathic relating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you're used to a culture of being separate or divided, there's a lot of ways in which that feels safer or protective or insulated, and I don't know, I'm not fully in this mindset right now, but I could imagine someone thinking that this is very scary, or there's some, or, you know, risky, or you could, you know, get in misunderstandings or get confused or be made a fool of, or, you know, there's like things that could go wrong. So.
So you can imagine people who are in a culture where you're sort of separated and disconnected, that you develop sort of a comfort in that. And then if you come into this world where it's connection, mutual listening, sort of emerging, that, hey, that could be kind of dangerous. I don't feel comfortable here. So you're having some understanding for people coming from one worldview into a more empathic worldview and things that might scare them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I think that's really the bulk of it right now. And I think I feel very understood. I think that's as much as I want to bite off
Okay,
at this
great.
moment.
Yeah, you feel heard then. So
Yeah,
great,
thank you.
thanks. Tiffany, can I speak to you?
Sure.
Yeah, so the topic of this first session of our training is about the culture of empathy. So it's not like, hey, we're doing this empathy circle, it's this little process, it's this innocuous process. It actually fits into a whole bigger picture, a bigger vision of humanity and society. So I just want to, and that's why we're talking about the values of a culture of empathy, because we want to look at the bigger picture.
Okay. So you were letting us know why we're basically why this is, and it's to make it a very important part of it. Like we're looking at the culture of empathy and how important it is to our culture and building one.
And and also saying that, hey, this empathy circle that we're doing, there's a bigger picture to this. It's just not repeating each other's words. There's the bigger picture here. This is only kind of the beginning. So I guess it's sort of giving that bigger context.
Okay, so it's not just we're listening to each other. It's bigger than this.
Exactly. And I think, Shannon laid it out very well in terms of there's a whole energetic difference here, right? And then, coming from other cultures, maybe the concerns people have, if you're used to fighting all the time, like most of our culture is sort of a battle in the news, a battle in personality, a battle to be heard. And then you come into a different environment where you don't have to fight. You don't have to fight to be heard anymore. It's kind of, it is sort of a shock, and it's how do we really create a whole culture sort of based on that? So it's a big cultural shift that we're looking at here.
Yeah, you were saying that in society, it can be so combative that when you get in a more peaceful culture where we're discussing empathy, it can be a shock, it can be a culture shock to you.
Yeah.
Or to us.
Yeah. So those may be some of the blocks to, what we're doing here. And I guess I was just saying that's why the culture of empathy is important, and then relating it to your own personal values, like you had mentioned respect. So I'm kind of like wondering, how does respect relate to empathy? What is the feeling of respect? The respect is someone seeing you, and then I think that empathy is, seeing someone. So I'm just trying to make the connections between these different terms and words.
Mm-hmm. What is it that you called it earlier? It was like a word puzzle. Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
So the words that our values, you were trying to connect our values to empathy, and mine was respect. So you were trying to see how that can be connected to empathy, and how other people, when they put in their values, how is that connected to empathy?
Yeah, word cloud. That was it. That was
word
somebody
cloud.
put it into the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense here, the empathy circle is a little model. It's a little microcosm of that bigger culture, right? Because we're not saying, oh, we need a culture of empathy, we need to do this and this. It's like we're actually doing it. We're actually practicing the essence of it. That's the thing with the empathy circle, is we're actually doing it. We are creating a little mini culture of empathy by listening and hearing each other.
Okay. I don't want to suggest the word rhetoric if that's not what you mean, but what you're saying is we're not just talking about it, we're actually doing it.
That's
in
it.
A little mini circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's why the empathy circle is so powerful. And then it's also, I want to get the politicians to do empathy circles, that we take our empathy tent to Congress, set up in front of the Congress and say, we demand that you do empathy circles, or in front of the White House, with Biden, et cetera. We demand it. So I want a whole movement, an assertive, nonviolent, empathic movement to kind of do cultural transformation.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, this is like grassroots for like a bigger fire they were trying to start, and getting everyone, even national leaders, on board with taking empathy so seriously that it's a part of what they do as well.
I feel fully heard. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. I don't know if Rasha or Shannon, have I spoken to either of you? Have either of you been my listener?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Have you, Rasha, or?
No.
Okay. So Rasha, would you like to be my listener?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that Edwin talked about that it was a bigger story to this, because I was beginning to think this was just about learning about listening and developing listening skills.
All right. What I hear you say is that you're glad Edwin gave you a bigger picture to what Empathy Circles has in mind, and because you were thinking that it's just all about listening, and that's it.
Absolutely. And I think there's more to empathy. I'm so glad I saw that word cloud. I used to think empathy was just listening.
Starting to think there's more to empathy, especially because you saw that word cloud. Because yeah, until now empathy was just listening to you.
Correct. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's about understanding other people and really feeling what they're feeling.
So if you're not mistaken, I think empathy is, really feeling what somebody else is feeling, really connecting with them and trying to feel what they feel.
And just making sure they feel respected and heard.
Yeah, and making sure that, the person feels respected and heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking if we'll be in the same group every week, and how that would work, or will we be pushed towards more diversity? And I think it's going to be more diversity every week. So I think I'm in for a real treat.
So you were thinking that, maybe we'll be put with the same group every week, but you now realize that, you'll be with a more diverse group. I mean, you'll be getting to be with a lot more people in different groups. And so you feel you're in for a treat.
Yes, that's pretty much it. Thank you, Rasha.
Thank you, Tiffany. All right. So Shannon, would you like to listen to me? Yeah.
Happy to, yes.
All right. So because Stephen has been waiting to kind of get clarity on what I was mentioning a while back, so I'll get to that first. So what I was trying to say is that when we began the circles, I remember Stephen talking about how sometimes there's so much to speak, but because everything's just kept within, and then finally when you get the opportunity to speak, sometimes it just comes out too aggressively, right? Because of all that was kept inside, right? I remember him saying I hope I'm right, so something of that sort at the beginning. Yeah, I'll stop there. I'll continue after that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think you were going back to what Stephen was saying, and especially this one part about that when we hold back for too long, when we finally have the chance to share, it tends to come out with a burst.
Yeah, that's right. But during the conversations here, I was silently observing how when it was Stephen's turn to speak, he did need time. He couldn't just, it wasn't very easy for him to speak out, right? And I was just observing that. And I may be right or wrong, but it was an assumption that, the reason why Stephen is finding it hard to speak out is possibly because of, years of conditioning, like, where, men in his culture, he feels have been, taught to not show emotions as much as women. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're sort of kind of sharing a observation that even though Stephen had this, made this statement or this about what sometimes happens when you hold back too much, that you noticed that when it was time to speak, there was seemingly a difficulty getting started, and you were wondering or reflecting on that, like maybe this has something to do with years of conditioning and kind of.
Very much, yeah. That's what I was trying to say. I'm not sure whether I was right or wrong, but when Stephen actually spoke about how he gets very nervous when he's trying to say something real, right? During the last circle, yeah, I felt that maybe I did what, my observation was possibly close. Yeah.
So you're reflecting further that maybe what happens when someone's conditioned is that something similar to what Stephen said was going on, is that it can be difficult to come out with.
Not really. What I was saying is there was this, during the last circle, there was a period where Stephen asked the listener to just give him some time, because he, when he's trying to talk about something that's very real and close to his heart, he needs time, and he gets nervous, and sometimes he loses track of things. He was saying that to you. So yeah, when I heard that, I felt that, my initial, this observation that, Stephen has this difficulty to speak out. Maybe my initial observation was close to reality. Yeah.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when Stephen asked me for a few moments before sharing, you were thinking that maybe your thought that it's difficult to share sometimes, perhaps due to conditioning or whatever, was that was evidence of it. Or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But Stephen did actually share that, he does get nervous when trying to share something real.
Right. And so, but Stephen did share that he does get nervous.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so it just spoke to me, like, it just touched me how difficult, these sort of things where, you this gender discrimination, sometimes just, forcing people to see themselves a certain way, men shouldn't be emotional, all these sort of things, the long-term impact it can have, right? And the difficulty it can create in the lives of people. So I just felt very touched, by it. And just and a lesson as to why, especially like, Edwin was saying, be it in classrooms, be it in families, why there is a need for us to bring empathy circles, and conversations and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that just this whole observation that you had really kind of touched your heart, because it made you realize the impact, the long-term impact of this types of conditioning, and made you realize also how powerful sort of what Edwin was saying about bringing these circles into, schools and families could be for that very reason.
Yeah. I feel very, very heard. Thank you, Shannon.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
So, Tiffany, do you want to be my listener?
Absolutely.
So what's alive for me? It's nice to see, it's nice to meet new people this week, and it's also nice to see and speak to some familiar people that are becoming familiar quickly. I think, speaking to what you were saying, Tiffany, about being able to share with, quote unquote strangers, but I have always found that interesting as a therapist. People will tell me things that they don't share with those people that are very close to them in their lives. And so I spend some time thinking about that also.
So what really made you alive this week is the rotation and meeting different people. And you were also sort of piggybacking on what I said about how it's probably easier for us to talk to a stranger than the people who we really need to talk to. Mm-hmm. But you see that as a therapist quite often.
Right. Yeah. And kind of the power in being able to share no matter. I mean, it's wonderful to, like Edwin was saying, to like trust that your listener is really taking in what you're saying in a very real way. But I think there's power in just speaking it at the same time. And so, you know, sort of seeing how powerful that is for each individual person. And that, you know, yes, it matters who you're telling very much in a lot of ways, but that there's also just power in being able to say it.
Yeah. So you're noticing that people feel empowered in just speaking out about their feelings, even if they're not saying it to the person who could benefit, you know, who could best benefit from hearing it or who they want to share it with. It's just still empowering to be able to say it, get it out there, verbalize it.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel very heard. And there are moments, I mean, it makes me think of moments that I've heard other people sharing about or that I've experienced in my own life where I didn't have a receptive listener, but that was the very reason why it was so important for me to still be able to say what I needed to say.
Right.
Yeah. Even though, you know, even though you might know going into it, this is maybe gonna just fall on deaf ears, just the mere fact of having the courage to get it out. Sometimes it's very therapeutic.
Yeah, you were saying it's therapeutic to just get it out there. And it was one more thing that I was really nodding on because I was like, that's the same way I feel. It just escapes my head. But just getting it out there and how important it is.
No, you got it. Yeah, that's for the essence of what I was saying. So I think that captures kind of what I'm feeling at this moment. And I do feel very heard. Thank you, Tiffany.
You're welcome. And I believe, Shannon, you're the only person who hasn't listened to me. So
yeah.
I guess I'll wrap up by saying this week, I really like that I just didn't make it about me. I actually listened that Rasha connected empathy to her community at large in her culture.
Okay. So what I heard you say right then, I'll just quickly capture that first part, is that you really liked that this week you didn't make it about yourself, that it suggests that you thought maybe you were in the past and this week was different in some way. And one of the key things you took is how Rasha was talking about empathy within her culture. And that really struck you. So
Absolutely. And how Edwin had talked about how he did empathy circles with his family, like nieces and nephews. And we wouldn't use it there if we didn't think it was needed. And how Stephen talked about a past relationship that obviously meant a lot to him and how you related it to your profession. Yeah.
So you were like kind of summarizing right then that Edwin had talked about bringing it into schools and with families. Stephen had talked about empathy in a past relationship, and that I had spoke about bringing it to my profession.
And I think that my takeaway from all four of you all is that if you're not a practitioner of it, you can lose your family. You could lose someone who's very important to you. You could lose a whole culture of people, or you could not connect with people at your job.
Wow. So what you took from all of that in that, you know, very nice summary is that if you don't practice empathy, you stand to kind of lose people that are important to you, or, you know, even a grasp or, you know, a sense of a culture, a whole culture, and there was, I think, one last thing I might have missed, but
job.
Job.
Right. Job.
That's right.
Yeah, and I've actually missed out, I feel like, on all areas. When I look back on jobs, when I had no idea what empathy was, I can see how I wasn't connected to my coworkers. We weren't a team. I've lost someone very close to me, like Stephen. I think in a lot of intimate relationships, I've lost because of the lack of it. I think my family could be closer if it were better. And I think my culture and, you know, like Blacks, I think we could even be more cohesive if we understood it better. So I'm getting it on all sides.
Okay. Wow. So I hear like you also saw in reflecting on how not having empathy, we stand to lose certain things that are important to us. You've taken that to heart and identified it in your own life, different times at your own work where you felt like there wasn't that cohesion because maybe you weren't bringing as much empathy as you would have wanted, or losing out on romantic relationships in the past that were important to you. And then even with your own culture, like feeling like bringing more empathy into the Black culture would just foster more cohesion, even more cohesion and feeling.
Yeah. And so I'm here because there's hope. So thank you for listening to me, Shannon. I really feel heard. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, that was wonderful. And yeah, thank you, Tiffany, for that beautiful summary. She summarized so what happened in the last 1.5 hours. So we have, I think, 5 minutes to closing. And before that, I just wanted us to do a small debrief. So maybe I'd love to hear what each and every one of you have to say. We heard, so how about Shannon, would you like to go first?
Sure. I shared that thought, Rasha, like that was such a beautiful summary, Tiffany, kind of wrapping up, what we covered. And I feel very touched and moved by this group. And it was pretty profound for me, I think. I'll probably be thinking about it, throughout the weekend. So I just feel grateful. I think I'm in a place of gratitude right now.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Deepen?
Did you say me? Or him? Stephen?
I think
Oh,
you said
okay.
Stephen, yeah.
Okay.
But would you just state again what you'd like us to speak to?
Just how the experience of the empathy circles was today for you. How
Yeah.
the 1.5 hours of being in this group and sharing and all that.
Yeah.
Like, what did you?
Okay. Well, I think I've touched on this already in my turns, that I really quite enjoyed it, and it was it was really rich. To say it again, I enjoyed the way we responded to each other. It felt like plenty of everyone having their own space, but also an interplay. It was a very nice balance of that, I thought. It really worked for me anyway. I can say I particularly enjoyed hearing a tiny bit about your experience, Russia, and your culture. I enjoyed having the time that I need to not know what I'm going to say. It was great. It was really great. It was a super start, I think.
Awesome.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Edwin?
It feels great to me, is, building that culture of empathy. It's sort of one conversation at a time. And I just really enjoy the connection. And, it's just every time, people from all over the world, and I just see that common humanity. We're all dealing with the same, underlying issues. And, it's just basically our common humanity. And it's just very moving and touching just to have that sort of that feeling of connection and warmth and care. Yeah. So a little mini empathy, culture of empathy here to experience it, to live it. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Edwin. Tiffany?
I'm excited. I'm here because we're moving forward. I don't want to lose anything else because of a lack of empathy. So I'm just excited to be moving forward.
Lovely.
My takeaway.
Lovely. Thank you, Tiffany. And from me, so grateful that I could meet you all in this journey, just spend so much time with each and every one of you. There's so much that I learned today, so much, and also one thing that I really connected with, or one thing that maybe more like a takeaway would be something that Shannon, you were talking about how sometimes connection can be unknowing, right? It can be uncomfortable, right? And we live in times when enjoys being behind technology and possibly not forming real connections. And possibly this is one of the reasons, right? Because forming connections and being close means having to fight, having to deal with the difficult things. And so yeah, so and Edwin, when you were talking about that, Edwin was kind of like saying how this could be one of the reasons why people don't come to our sort of a space, right? And so that just struck me, how this is one of the barriers to building a culture of empathy, right? And so yeah, I'm glad I got that snippet. So much more that I learned from each and every one of you. Lovely to see how all of you are such amazing listeners, because listening is something that took a while for me to kind of get used to. So I'm just really glad. Yeah, and with that, I think we have a minute more. And because you're all here to become trainers, I just wanted to maybe share a small tip, which I practiced today, as a trainer, which later on in your journey as trainers might help you. Oh, yeah. All right.
No share. No share.
Progress. No, just about, even though we had 5-minute term, not keeping it consistent. I mean, when I see there is conversation where a little more time needs to be given, then I was giving an extra time, maybe 5-6 minutes around, right? So yeah, just saw how well it worked in today's group. So I just wanted to share that. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope you all had a very a very therapeutic, beautiful experience in your own individual groups. Hope you got to enjoy the magic of the Empathy Circles process, right? And so as part of our debrief with the whole group, it'll be great if each and every one of us can take about 1 minute, right?
30 seconds.
Are we supposed to talk to one person for
1 minute? You get 1 minute for the debrief.
1 minute. Yeah, so we'll come to that towards the end, right? As an answer to your question. So yeah, each of us can take about 1 minute to share your experience and insights from the Empathy Circle, right? So again, you can talk about how the experience went, what you took away, what your insights were, and you can also talk about, or else you can talk about the values that you spoke about in your respective groups and how that connect to building a larger, culture of empathy. Or as usual, whatever feels alive for you, feel free to talk about that. So remember, try to keep it within 1 minute, and I'll call on you to speed up the process. So yeah, beginning with Tiffany.
Okay. My value was respect. I think when you really listen to people and connect with them, they'll feel respected. So that was my first value. What made this alive for me was that there's so many men here. As I expressed earlier, I thought empathy was like a woman or soft skill, and I'm so glad to see all of the men here who are interested in it too. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany. Edwin? Like to
yeah, as we shared, we had a little bit of a debrief in our group, and I just love to see, it just feels very gratifying to see us building a culture of empathy. We have a little mini empathy culture, in the group, and if we can do it in a little group, we can see somebody coming in. We can extrapolate it to a larger culture. So if it's doable, we have a minimal viable empathy culture. It just feels so gratifying. And I think Stephen also mentioned that aspect of by giving, by holding empathy circles, it's very beneficial to the people doing it, the facilitators, the organizers, because you get a lot back through the contributing. So yeah, it feels very good. Had a really warm, caring circle.
Thank you, Edwin. Shannon?
Yeah, I agree. I'm still sitting in a lot of gratitude from all of the giving and kind of the receptivity of our particular circle, and kind of reflecting on the values that were shared and my own of honesty and transparency. Just kind of appreciating that people challenge themselves and each other, because it's not always easy, empathy and honesty. And, it's easy to say as a value, because of course that's wonderful, but when you're in the hot seat, it's not always it's not always the easiest thing. And so I'm just in appreciation at the moment. So thank you to my group and everyone.
Thank you, Shannon.
Didn't hear who you said, or you could.
Can't hear you, Rasha.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Stephen, could you? Yeah.
Yeah, now I heard you.
All right.
I sort of feel talked out and tired. I really enjoyed it. I feel like I put a lot into it. I really enjoyed getting to know the folks in my group, and I challenged myself to be quite authentic, and that is one of the main values that I put it in different terms: transparent. And I feel like I'm forcing myself to say more, and I don't want to do that. So I just really liked it, and I'm done.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
Kathy?
Yes, I'm grateful I was invited to support this group today. And one of the values that came out in our group was generosity. And I thank Celine for being generous and letting me facilitate the circle today. And another thing that came out that I really love is I'm listened to, therefore I'm seen and I matter, therefore I am. And so I'm leaving today with my heart full and open. So thank you all.
Thank you, Kathy. Linda?
Yes, every circle is a new experience for me. I love it. In this circle, I realized how important it is not only to listen, but to see the person, the expressions on their face. It helps you better understand, if not understand, but appreciate what they're saying. So it's great. I love it.
Thank you, Linda. Bill?
Yeah, I really appreciate the courage of everybody to come here and to participate and to really try to create a different culture. We're trying to essentially change the way we think that we've been thinking for 8,000 to 10,000 years. It's not easy, but it's about time. Thank you.
Celine?
Yes, our circle, we were all mediators, so we really have a lot of practice in listening empathically. And also we shared about self-empathy that you brought up, Rasha, which I think is an important part of the process. So for me, it was a very rich and deep and enjoyable experience, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
In our group, well, for me, my core values was transparency and compassion. And compassion seemed to be a big one for our group as well. Compassion and kindness. And I really realized that I needed to add one that's really important to me, is gratitude. I'm really grateful for everyone sharing. It was such a humbling experience listening to everyone and what they're going through. And so I'm always very grateful when I'm listening and being heard in these empathy circles.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Graham?
I'm feeling in a very good space. I'm very happy with what happened and what turned out in our group. And I was with Mona, Afra, and Raid. And I always find that this topic of what are your values is a very, very meaty subject. We can approach it from all sorts of angles, and there's just endless talking. And I've circled three little things here. One is connecting, another one is equality, and the other one is vulnerability. And those were the three themes, interconnected themes there, which sort of went all the way through our breakout room today. And yeah, as a facilitator, I also learned an awful lot today. And I thank you, Afra, Mona, and Raed. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Kevin?
I guess I want to say thank you to my group. But I really, what I got from this is a lot. And I guess the word I'm looking for is courage. So I believe the group brought such courage to the conversation and the organic growth that came from, which I'm so grateful that it was such a sense of awareness, I think, for all of us, but for me, definitely. So I'm generally thankful.
Thank you, Kevin. Francisca?
Yes, my value, one of the core values that was mine was connection. And it just seemed to bubble up in our group a lot, the sense of cultivating greater presence, noticing when connection isn't happening, sometimes self-consciousness could get in the way of also connecting as well. And I really believe that connection is what we're trying, one of the things we're trying to develop here, and greater sense of closeness, a greater sense of oneness. And we can do this through practicing these skills in these empathy circles. So yeah, so that's greater inspiration for me to continue doing this work and supporting it.
Thank you. Thank you, Francisca. Raed? Raed, I'm talking to you.
I'm sorry. Yes. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I think I met amazing people. We reached openness and transparency very fast, and we connected on a deeper level. So I'm thankful for the team for allowing us to do that. My values were integrity, accountability, and respect. And the first thing that happened was Graham mentioned, as he was saying he was in our room, he mentioned those were his values, and he talked about his new values as values change. And one of his new values were aim to connect. And we went deeper towards how to achieve that level of aiming to connect. And we got a lot of tools to use in the future so that we can achieve that value. So thank you.
Thank you. Shyam?
Thanks, Rasha. I think besides the sense of gratitude that I had to my group, for sharing so honestly, I was reflecting on what they're sharing called within me. So memories that I didn't even really remember just surfaced out of nowhere, and like what bells were rung inside me, right? Because I felt like that really helped me understand myself better in figuring out where I was coming from, and therefore being able to better listen and better be empathetic to others. And it was those bells that I was listening to within myself that is my biggest takeaway from today. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Shyam. Mona?
I'm usually happy to be in the Empathy Circle, and I was in the group with Graham and Afrah and Raed, and I start my talking about equality and respect and caring, but now all I was thinking about is acceptance. Accept myself and accept others. like accept their ideas, their feelings, their sharing, and accept myself and my thoughts. And I think this is a new variable, is a new value I gained from this circle today. And I'm very happy to be part of the group as usual. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Martina?
I had an amazing experience in my group, and I also have a lot of gratitude for the 3 people I was with. One of my values was integrity, and I define integrity for me as just being present to whatever I'm experiencing with and kind of accepting it. And right at the end, I became aware of a pattern that was further teaching me to grow, the self-consciousness that I was experiencing in the empathy circle that's preventing me from connecting with others. And so I wasn't expecting that to happen, but that's just part of my growth. So I have a lot of gratitude for that experience.
Thank you, Martina. I love how you took that. Afra?
Yeah. I also really enjoyed our circle. More than the values everyone had to say, I enjoyed the discussion at the end where we discussed about how to improve empathy apart from active listening by developing vulnerability, how to be more vulnerable, and also how to develop these things, even though it is difficult. It comes by practice. I really enjoyed it, and I was with Graham, Mona, and Raid, and I want to thank all of them for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Afra. Ralph?
Keep coming up with this image. I'm told that the strawberry plant not only has roots that go down, but has roots that connect. So I see the members of my group, to whom I'm very grateful for their generosity of sharing and listening, of all of us being connected by this root. The more we talk, the more we realize the universal connection among us. I wonder why I want to keep doing empathy circles all the time, 24/7. And I think that, like I think Mona said, I need to do a circle with myself. And just as we say, we can't love another person unless we love ourselves, there's a connection to my being empathic with myself, and then better being able to connect. Wonderful.
Lovely. Thank you. Jackie?
Hello. Yeah. I enjoyed reflecting on my 3 values this afternoon. And one of them was beauty. I love beautiful places, beautiful things. And when we were asked to reflect on it in the empathy circle, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I was thinking of physical beauty. Anyway, and the other one of my values was kindness. So I was taken a little bit aback and wasn't quite sure what I was going to come up with. But yeah, when I think about the group, there was so much kindness in the group. Just the sharings, Bill so generously sharing as much as he could about how to hold a circle, and yeah, just really at every opportunity sharing information and his longing to contribute. And the other 2 participants, Shyam and Michelle, just sharing what was alive in them and things they've done. So much kindness. And that's so beautiful. Like, yeah, it really, the kindness is so beautiful. And that's the biggest thing I'm taking home today is I feel I've been in the presence of real kindness. Yeah. And it's so, I feel like humbled by it. And it's a really nice feeling. Yeah, it's really, actually, I mean, it's not a quality, like a soft kindness and a selflessness is not a quality that I come across a lot, actually. It's not like a general quality in my world, in the people, and yeah, it's a really very quiet quality. Yeah, I hope I'm making sense to you. It's me.
Thank you for sharing, Jackie. Thank you. Al-Jazi?
Yes. First, I would just like to thank everyone for dedicating their time. I really appreciate that. Today, actually, I've learned, or I get to see how it's actually effective to reflect the other person. It gives you some time to actually, even if they're saying something that you have an opposite opinion about, and normally you would respond to them, just reflecting gave me a time to make peace with what they're saying, and it prevented me from just responding and being defensive, if you could say. And this is something I have an issue with. So yeah, it was interesting.
All right, thank you. And with that, I remain. So yeah, for me, so much learning today from the group. It was lovely as usual, and it was inspiring to see the kind of views and perspectives that people came with. And so yeah, there was a lot of learning. And now as I listen to all of you share your thoughts, I just realize how much connection there is in what all of us want to share, right? And so that's again inspiring. Yeah, and one thing I really take away is, this point that came up in our group about how sometimes connection can be very, unnerving. It can create discomfort, right? Because when you connect it to people, connections and people come with difficult things as well, right? And so when you're connected to people, you also have to deal with the difficult stuff. So that kind of struck me, how it's also a barrier to empathy. And so yeah, just taking that point. Yeah, and with that, I'll pass on facilitation to Francisca, who will be closing with some comments. Thank you.
I think Graham was going to do that part. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's Graham. Yeah, Graham. Over to you.
So I'm now just slightly confused because I thought that was over to Russia. So if you don't mind, I will actually continue. So I think this is point number 2. And so let's review what we did in this session. We reviewed the core values of a culture of empathy, and we explored our values and how they related to the culture of empathy. And we had the experience of participating in an empathy circle and experiencing what actually goes on there. And now, what is coming up next week? In session 2, as trainee facilitators, we will each practice, let's say there are three trainee facilitators in a breakout room, they will each practice facilitating, so they'll divide the time. And so you will basically be given the opportunity of doing facilitation for your own time, for your own circle. And of course, you can get feedback, invite feedback, and similar things. And so the next one is in terms of assignments. So as part of our commitment here, we have assignments to do. And one of them is please to fill out the session feedback form. This is actually very, very important and goes back into Edwin's mill, finding out how to fine tune the process. You'll be notified, or you have recommended buddy calls. It's suggested you actually contact this buddy and have an empathy session, because one of the important things is to create a community of facilitators. And the other one is to try to facilitate an empathy circle. Either create your own empathy circle from the circles you have around you, or with your family, or in any other way. And so those are tasks that you need to do. And
can we just step one was check on any final facilitator comments. I just wanted to add a couple of comments there, Graham. That's okay.
Please, go right ahead. Thank you.
So the first one is you've taken part in an empathy circle several times now. That on Fridays we have an open intro empathy cafe. There's we have an event on LinkedIn and Facebook. A lot of people come. That we had 30 people yesterday. So you're welcome to actually attend that. And if you would like to, you can actually facilitate one of the breakout empathy circles. So you can get a little bit of practice doing it. So I just wanted to give a little heads up. As well as Bill has a Thursday empathy cafe that he's holding on for educators, if people are interested in empathy circles and education. So I just want to give a little heads up to those other events, and I'll be sending out an email after this with all those assignments. So you'll just check that. And if some people are having difficulty getting my emails, they were maybe going into your spam folder. So do check on, edwinrutch@gmail.com. Make sure that you're able to, they're on your safe sender list. So that's it. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you. So as two final steps, one of them is please post in the chat one word or a phrase as to how you feel about your experiences today.
Oh, and there is the link to the feedback form in the chat too. And you can ask any questions there. So at the beginning of the next session, forgot to mention that at the beginning of the next session, we try to answer those questions. So if there's any questions that come up during the week, post there. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Edwin. And so some of these are empowered, gratitude, grateful, transformative, moved, good experience, positive, heart opening, loads and loads of gratitude, grateful, thankful with a smiley, grateful, loads and loads of grateful. And so thank you, everybody. To close off, can we do our jazz hands?
And if those who don't have their cameras on, is it possible to open your cameras just for this one moment? We need that for a group portrait. There we go.
Afra.
See, are they able to get a there? Go ahead, try. Yay, there you go. We got someone. Yeah, so great. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you and bye-bye.
So see you next week.
Bye.
Bill has something.
Oh, Bill has something.
Yeah, just to make it clear, next week, in addition to facilitating, you'll also be doing the how-to presentation. That's all.
So you might want to review it.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that I did put for empathy in schools, I did put my Zoom address and then when that's occurring. That's Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific time. So thanks, everybody. That's it.
Thank you. Kevin has something, see?
So for how do you get a shirt?
And his shirt.
We got them. I have 10 of them for sale. So send me an email about that. I can send you that. So.
All right, thank you.
We have them out in the empathy tent. When we go out and take the empathy tent out in public, we wear these and just kind of signify what we're doing. So thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. See you. And if the facilitators could stay back, yeah. Thanks. See you
Bye.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.